This is Viva Fry.
I'm Dr. Peter McCullough.
This is Tom Luongo.
This is Chuck Prodnick.
This is Alex Kreiner.
Hey, this is Brad Wall.
This is JP Sears.
Hi, this is Frank Peretti.
This is Tammy Peterson.
This is Danielle Smith.
This is James Lindsay.
Hey, this is Brett Kissel, and you're listening to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Thursday. We got an excellent on tap here for you today. Before we get there, did you know you can hold physical gold and silver in your registered accounts? The deadline for contributions to your RRSP, TFSA, RRIF, or Kids RESP is March 2nd, so that's less than a month away, folks. Obviously, once it's, or maybe not obviously, once your contribution is made, you can invest it into physical precious metals at any time, and Silver Gold Bull can help you with all their in-house solutions, whether buying, selling, or storing precious metals. Down in the show notes, you can text or email Graham for details with any questions you have around investing in precious metals and for future silver deals exclusively offered to the SMP listener. And speaking of silver, how about we take a look at the charts? Today, $1.1593. And Martin's got some interesting thoughts on precious metals over the next, 5 years, 6 years, something like that I think some people are going to find interesting. I'll wait and hear what you fine folks have to say about that. Guardian Plumbing and Heating, these guys have been keeping homes, farms, and businesses running smoothly since 2010. Whether it's expert service, cutting-edge power solutions, or advice you can trust, Guardian Plumbing and Heating has your back. You can find them at guardianplumbing.ca. They've been protecting their customers from the unexpected through innovative solutions. Ignite Distribution, that's Shane Stafford and his group over there. They have the filter sale. It's once per year. It's below cost pricing. Save 50% or more on all of Napa Gold filters. The only way they can sell at these prices is that during the event, the manufacturer will subsidize their losses by rebating them back. It's a great time to buy a year's supply of farm, HD equipment, lawn and garden, and regular automotive equipment. Anyone who is interested can give them a call, 780-842-3433, for pricing and to place your orders. You make sure, folks, if you're making the call, you reference the Sean Newman Podcast. So just like the RRSP contributions have to be done by March 2nd, your filter orders have to be placed by March 2nd. And I'm just going to go down. They sent me a huge list. Like there's a ton of stuff, all right? A Peterbilt C15 engine. I guess Peterbilt 379 Cat C15 engine, okay? Let's go here. The air filter, regularly $274. You're going to get it for $121. So if you're looking at the price of things and going, man, it just keeps going up and up and up, this one's for you guys, all right? You can buy filters right now, place it through Ignite, and get them for I'm just looking the percentages off on like a 2018 Ram, 56% off, 59% off, 59% off, 60% off. It just goes on and on and on. So why not make a call and try and save yourself some money today? That's Ignite Distribution, their big sale. You got to have your orders placed by March 2nd. Their number, once again, 780-842-3433. That's Shane Stafford and team over there. Well, today's guest, Martin Armstrong, is going to be at the Cornerstone Forum March 28th. And I was, I was saying, what was that? 5 days ago? Was it the start of the week? I'm kind of forgetting now. I was saying, we're closing in on 100 tickets left, and we've sold 150 in a week. Since I said that, we're now below 100 tickets left. We have 94 as I sit here left to go. That's now 9 tables left sitting there. And if you're procrastinating, I would just suggest you go down on the show notes or you go to showpass.com/cornerstone26. We sold 14 yesterday. So you can do the math on how quickly this is going to sell out if we keep a similar pace. We've been, it's not going to be that long, I don't think. So, if Martin Armstrong doesn't do it for you, maybe Neil Oliver will, or the Premier of Alberta, or Tom and Alex, Vince Lanchi, Karen Kwiatkowski. Sorry, butcher her name every time. I can hear Andrew laughing at me because he keeps texting me about me butchering her name. Regardless, the Cornerstone Forum returns March 28th. I hope to see you there. And don't wait. The tickets are going to sell out. It's just a matter of when and if you get yours. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, Substack, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave a review. On Substack, you can become a paid member, which gives you some behind-the-scenes footage on, the odd thing here and there. the other thing it does is Kevin had brought this up, and we did it today with Martin, is that, when I have recurring guests on, people have questions because they've listened the first time, or, you think of Tom and Alex and on it goes. And they're saying, maybe we could have a way to ask questions. So we did that yesterday, and I plan to start doing it moving forward. And the only people who get access to asking questions are going to be the paid members. Just one of the cool perks of being there. That's Substack. If you want to be in on that, head on over to Substack. No, folks, you don't have to do that. You can just be subscribed as a free member too. Appreciate you all being on this journey. Now, let's get on to that tale of the tape. Today's guest is the CEO of Armstrong Analytics. I'm talking about Martin Armstrong. So buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by Martin Armstrong. Martin, thanks for hopping back on.
Oh, it's always interesting to see you.
That's putting it lightly, isn't it? It's like, what are we going to talk about? I'm trying to compile all the things. I'm like, I don't know. How do I shorten this so that it doesn't go 17 hours? I want to start with just a simple thing off X. You put, I believe I've shaken the ground that the neocons stand on. So if I die by a suicide, you know who it really is. Could you just walk me through this? I read that and I'm like, if Martin doesn't show up tomorrow, that would be newsworthy on my end.
Well, it centers around me being called in to write the peace plan. Initially, I was asked, I want to come to a briefing on Russia. I'm like, you want to brief me on what you're doing in Russia? Okay. So I took Hannah, who you know. I assumed it's just a conversation. I get there, and then she has to leave the room. I said, oh, this is national security now? Because, I have clearance. And so they escorted her out. And then, strangely, I was asked to write this peace plan that Putin would accept. And then, they know I have my back channels around the world. And then they said they want me to write it and use my back channels. I said, you want me to do this? I said, yeah. So I'm like, why am I being called in? So I said, I'm thinking maybe this is a side, clandestine group or something. And I said, is this sanctioned? And I was told yes. I said, all right. So I wrote it. I put it on the blog because using my back channels, I have to make sure that the people that are going to get it can always say they got it from a public source rather than me handing it to them. But I did. I got it on Putin's desk. And 2 days later, Lavrov came out and said basically what this was about. And he came out and he said, Russia's willing to guarantee we're not interested in going into NATO. Of course, NATO then comes out, oh, they're lying. So what I mean by that comment is that at that meeting, they know where I stand. And I said, look, your enemy is going to be the EU, not Russia. the EU is going to stab you in the back on any type of a peace plan. And I even specifically named Kalis. I said, be careful with her. The response was, yes, we know. I met her personally. I said, okay. And then they said, we agree with you. We will not be in war with Russia. It will be China. I said, okay. And I said, we should get the hell out of NATO because they're going to do a false flag to drag the United States and Canada, by the way, into World War III. And to my shock, they said, yes, we agree. I know that. So I guess that's why I was called in. Then, and what I should say is because of what I went through before, they were trying to do this regime change in Russia back in 2000. And that's when they had asked me to put in $10 billion, and I refused. Okay. So Putin knows, I think also the reason they asked me is that Putin knows that if it comes from me, I'm not one of them. So they even said, we're very sorry for what they did to you, but it gave you more credibility. And I said, okay, I understand where we're coming from. So I guess that's why I was called in. Then, but I have nothing in writing. Then Mark Rubio comes out publicly and says, we are behind NATO, we will not leave. So then I begin to see the reason I'm called in is because I'm on the opposite side of the table from the neocons. And Rubio, I've had contact with him. He's basically, I was surprised he was given Secretary of State, and I was told that that was a olive branch to the neocons. So I assumed that I was then called in because I'm on the opposite side. And so obviously there's some sort of a rift in the administration. And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, I got a letter from Trump. Thank you for what I wrote. So I guess it was sanctioned.
And if people want to read the letter, it's sitting at the top of your X feed, just to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, so, look, I've been battling against these people since 98. And I know some of them. I've been to dinner with them. Bill Kristol, whose father even started the neocon movement, spoke at one of our conferences. So I know Bill. So I've definitely am not, I've been there. It's not a conspiracy theory type stuff. And, I think they might do this or whatever. I've actually had dinner with these people. So I guess that puts me in a different category. And plus, I mean, look, we have offices around the world. When China, was the 97 Asian currency crisis, I'm the one that China called in. Met with the central bank, all that stuff. When they were forming the euro, I was called in on that. I've just been in the middle of just about every financial crisis since this, really the 70s. And what people have to realize is that when Bretton Woods collapsed in 71, the currencies just started trading in futures in 72. Um, I had a client who happened to have been the executive vice president of Franklin National Bank. And that was the bank that started MasterCard and was the first bank to fail after the fall of Bretton Woods. It failed in 74. And so he came to me. He says, would you come take a look at this? Because there were no academics or anybody that understood a floating exchange rate other than Milton Friedman, basically. And to this day, they still teach Keynesian economics in university. So I got called into that, and the bank went down on a 10% move in the Italian lira. People didn't know about hedging back then or anything of that nature. So pretty much after that, because there was nobody with experience in foreign exchange, I just got called into absolutely everything. Forming the G5 in 85, 87 crash, creating the euro. I mean, I've been there, done that on everything. Met with the Swiss, central bank over breaking the peg in the euro Swiss. You know, this is it. Like I've said, I'm not an academic. I'm a trader. And this stuff is still not taught in school. I won't mention the university, but one of the top 5 in the world invited me to lunch. I went and they asked me if I would teach. I said, excuse me? I said, I'm not really interested in teaching a class in university. But I said, why are you asking me? They actually did say, I swear to God, they said, we know what we teach doesn't work. I said, well, that's the first step. Okay. But that's why I get called into central banks and stuff. I mean, Keynesian economics does not work. It has failed. Even you can look up Paul Volcker wrote Rediscovery of the Business Cycle in 1979. Even Paul at that point said everything we were taught, this new economics, failed. The 1974, recession proved that. I mean, I met with Paul and he said, you're right. Business cycle's 8 years. The guy before him at the Fed, Arthur Burns, he was there for the fall of Bretton Woods. Look him up. He came out and he says, business cycle always wins. But, university, they keep telling you the business cycle is just random. So we can manipulate it. We can smooth it out and eliminate recessions and depressions, So, I mean, I've just always been on the opposite side of the bankers that are manipulating in New York, the neocons. And I just seem to get called into everything all the time.
So I go back to the tweet you had. You look at it and you go, I am really messing up their plans. And it's evident to you. And you've been down the cycle of what they do to people who mess up their plans. And you go, simple math says, I better be careful.
I really give a shit. They're putting out a sequel to the movie on me, The Forecaster. And I should say this, to try and stop that movie, they broke into the The producers' offices stole what they thought was all the film to try and stop it. He had backups. I mean, they have gone to extreme lengths. The forecaster, I think it was on TV in Canada, never in the United States. You could see it on planes flying to the United States, and it was on in like Norway, etc., on TV. I mean, I even appeared on French TV, not American. So much for freedom of speech. I can tell you that the producer, Marcus Vetter, had to deal with Netflix. At the very last minute, he got a phone call. Sorry, we can no longer show it. So somebody picked up the phone and said, knock that off. But in the sequel, well, I should say in the first film, there's a guy from the Bureau of Prisons, Oliver Brown, that appeared in it. And listen to what he says. All right. The day before, the FBI shows up at his house to try and intimidate him not to be in the movie. I give him a lot of credit. He kicked him the hell out. In the sequel that's coming out, 2000, it's not probably well known, but with the Great Recession, 2008 to 07 to 09. Here I'm in prison. Congress comes to me, even in prison. I'm helping them. I'm talking to the House Financial Services Committee on the opposite side of the bankers. So what happens? They got a hold of the BOP. They had the BOP throw me in the hole to cut off my communications. Here I am in the hole, which is isolation, no phones, anything. All right. And so what happens, all of a sudden, the head of what we call the SIS, it's like the secret police that watch the police. All right. Those types of people are like kind of like the Nazi SS, If you walked by one, you don't look them in the eye, you look down at the ground because they're the worst of the worst. The head of that comes to the cell to take me out. And he starts kissing my ass. I've been trying to get you out of here. It wasn't me, and it was the warden. Everybody's throwing the warden under the bus. I finally get back to the camp. I said, what the hell is going on here? He said, there's a congressional investigation. Who put you in the hole? So the guy from Congress, I mean, you cut my communications off with Congress in the middle of this crisis. They then send a letter demanding who put me in the hole and why. All of a sudden, I'm released. And, I mean, you can't make up all this shit. I mean, the battles I've had with these people back and forth, for manipulating markets and regime changes and everything, it's like, I'm sorry. I don't want to be part of all this shit. But, I guess like they said at that meeting, we're very sorry, for what they did to you, but it gave you more credibility. And
Martin, when does the new movie come out?
I think before summer. I know they're doing also the Hollywood movie. I don't think that's going to be out until next year, but I agreed to do that because they want to show that cyclical analysis is the way forward. And So they want to show what was done to me, why, and all this other stuff. The sequel to The Forecaster is coming out because all the forecasts I made in the first film have all come true. So they want to go over that. And so obviously there's a better way to do this stuff. I believe that, the problem we have is that some politician stands up, says, vote for me, I'll lower unemployment. If the whole world is going down in a recession or depression, you can't take a single country and go opposite. All right, we're all connected. So, if you understood what this is about, you take, Europe going negative on interest rates. I warned them. They don't understand how this, will punish the people for saving. They're going to save and not spend if you have no confidence in the future. Simple as that. You can't punish them to go spend money on something that they don't need. But this is the stuff that they do. I mean, I remember back in the 70s, my accountant came and he says, look, you got to spend $50,000. I said, on what? Doesn't matter. Anything. If you don't, you're going to have to pay that to the government. It's the investment tax credit. I said, who came up with this one? So you end up, I can tell you at Fort Dix, they got, if you saw the, the Lost Ark of, and that movie, and there's that warehouse they put it, that really exists. They bought thousands and thousands of computers never used. Why? Because they have these rules. Let's say they give your agency $10 million. If you didn't spend it all, you're automatically cut back to whatever it was you spent. So they waste money at the end of every fiscal year. They go out and buy shit they don't need just to spend that money so it's not cut back. There are warehouses at Fort Dix in New Jersey with probably things that belong in the Smithsonian. I mean, the first computers, thousands of them. People don't realize government, it's just wasteful. Jimmy Carter thought he was going to do every agency each year had to go and say, okay, fine, this is what we want to spend. He put it on automatic pilot. So you don't have to do that. You automatically get what you spent last year. If you need more, you got to tell us why. So that has led to nothing but huge deficits because they just waste money. And then it was getting, because the reason they manipulate CPI is because their budgets are automatically indexed to CPI. So CPI going into 1980, going up to 20%, they automatically got 20% more to spend. They didn't need it. So then they waste that. So they keep that coming from next year. So then they finally figured that out. And then, so what do? Instead of changing the law, they manipulate the CPI. It's, back then, real estate was in the CPI. They took that out, replaced it with rents. When that was going up too much, they replaced it with rents that are controlled, like in places like New York. So they don't go up. They have finagled everything from Sunday. I mean, just goes on and on and on.
You've been, okay. Anytime there's a lot of uncertainty with different governments, you've been brought in, correct? Mm-hmm. That's So here in Alberta, I'm curious your thoughts, because you have in the last, well, certainly this year has been on steroids, but one of the things that I think a lot of people have been noticing is the rhetoric picking up, right? Treasonous has been a word thrown out a lot. And there is a movement on this independence petition, Martin.
Mhm.
And then there's a movement to counteract that, right? To label these people as traitors to the country and on and on and on. What can Albertans expect here in the next year? When, assuming this petition reaches the amount of signatures it's required to get to, in Alberta itself, you look anywhere and you always, you're trying to get peace for the United States. And there's people inside that government that hate you for that. Well, if you're in Alberta and you want something that you believe is good for Albertans, independence, there is going to be a counterfaction that says that's a terrible idea, and they're going to do things and say things that put, words and labels and who knows what else. And that's just Alberta. Then I go a little bit further and I think of Ottawa, but maybe even internationally, of the importance of what Alberta represents and all the resources and the people that live here and the area itself. And I go, what can Albertans expect? Your thoughts on that?
Well, eventually Alberta will split. I mean, so will Europe. And eventually even the United States will break up. What you have to understand is this, that when the Federal Reserve was initially created, they looked at what J.P. Morgan did to save the banks in 1907 panic. And they realized that there was the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. So what would happen is that the insurance companies are on the East Coast, and the money would flow to the West Coast. So there would be a shortage of cash on the East Coast, and you would have banks failing. All right. So when the Fed was originally designed, as I said at your conference, it was brilliant. All right. Why? Because you got all these branches. Why would we need branches? Because each branch was independent. They understood it was a regional economy. Like Alberta's different than, Newfoundland. Simple as that. Your economy is different, what you're based on, etc. Even in the American Civil War, the South was more agrarian, the North was more industrial. All right. One size does not fit all. So you can look at a newspaper from the 1920s and we'll list all the different branches of the Fed, and they all had different interest rates. If there was a shortage of cash because the farmers needed more cash to grow, they would raise the interest rates to 4, everybody's at 3. So the money would gravitate there to get the extra kick. All right. It was Roosevelt with the Great Depression and trying to push, light version of communism, basically. And just as the EU forced everybody with, negative interest rates, he usurped all the power of the Fed, put in a Fed chairman, and dictated one size fits all. Okay? He's just trying to push socialism through. Now, the whole problem with that, Canada followed suit. Go back to the 80s. There's real estate booming in Toronto. So the Bank of Canada was raising interest rates to fight real estate speculation in Toronto. Meanwhile, you're putting farmers and miners into bankruptcy in Alberta. In the States, we would always call it the Texas-New York arbitrage. When Texas was booming, inflation was up, New York was down. When commodities declined, New York was booming. All right. So the problem Canada faces, as does the United States, most of them, okay, is that centralized government does not work. All right. This is why Europe, you're seeing the stress. People are starting to complain. Even Merz came out from Germany. Your policies on migration, urban and Hungary, you will do what we tell you to do. No, we will not. I've been on the phone with Romania. They were given orders from Brussels. You will take another 100,000, migrants. They don't give a shit if they have any skills. They can't speak the language. They're just there for the dole. That's it. You get these centralized powers. All right. And it's whatever they think. That's what breaks things apart. Look at Russia. Lenin was actually trying to copy the United States, although communism, fine, but that each republic would retain its sovereignty. Okay, and so that's why it was called the Soviet Union, like the United States altogether. All right, he even wrote a letter you can look up. He said, "Do not let Stalin succeed me." In Russia, they assume, it's widely believed, that Stalin poisoned him, all right, to seize power. What did Stalin do? Independent republics? No way. I'm in control. He usurped all the power, just like Roosevelt. Okay? Everything into Moscow. He decides everything. All right? And that ends up why communism didn't work. That's the whole problem.
Sticking on Alberta for a sec, Martin. I had Lieutenant Colonel David Redman on earlier this week here from Canada. He lives in Alberta. He was talking about violence coming if there was a push for independence, or if it were to succeed, there'd be a real opportunity for violence. And I'd thrown it out to Substack paid members if they had questions for you, because you come on so often, if they'd like to expand. And one of the questions from Kevin was, your computer model shows Canada potentially breaking up by 2030. Does it indicate whether that breakup would be peaceful or involve violence? I don't know. Does Socrates tell you things like that? Like, can it point to things like that? Or is there other places in the world you can point to where it's been peaceful, or what has happened with a peaceful transition versus a violent transition?
No, I mean, Socrates, we have two separate models. One is international war, and the other one is civil unrest. And that's, you can look what I've said, this period that we're going into is going to be worse than many times in history. Why? Because both of those models are coinciding with the same thing. That's kind of what 2032 is about. So the civil unrest side is people realizing that government doesn't work under this form of a republic. All right. It's oppression, and you will do as I say. And that's not the way it works. All right. A government survives basically on the confidence of the people. Once that is lost, no government in history has ever been able to stand. Simple as that. French Revolution, American Revolution, just go down a list. Alberta will split. I think I gave, Brett basically the formula to make Alberta. I mean, they'll get pissed off because Alberta would shine more than anything in Canada. But, you know, uh, look, the answer to even world peace is economics. The greatest lesson is the Roman Empire. It lasted for 1,000 years. Why didn't people revolt to get out? Because it was more beneficial to be in. You wanted out, you couldn't sell. If you made vases in France, you couldn't sell them to somebody in Syria anymore. All right. If everybody's connected economically, that is what creates world peace. Putting the sanctions on Russia, absolutely the opposite. You want peace with Russia? No problem. Eliminate all the sanctions. Russia's not interested in going in to NATO, and they're not even interested in taking all of Ukraine. They were interested in protecting the Russians in the Donbass, period. Okay? The brief that I wrote, I said, fine, you want me to do this. All you had to do was honor the Minsk agreement. When Zelensky came to power, Putin even said to him, it's very important, honor what you wrote. It would never have been a war. So where are we at now? You have Trump saying, you want guarantees, Zelensky? Give up the Donbass. That's the Minsk agreement. How many millions of people have died because what? Because it's a centralized power. NATO has no validity anymore. It should have been disbanded when the Warsaw Pact fell. All right. This is the problem with any kind of a centralized power. NATO, if we had peace with Russia, then why you need NATO? All right. I saw the internal memos just when money was going to climate change. They were freaking out. Oh, how do we remain relevant to keep their pensions, to keep their salaries flowing? Oh, Russia wants to invade Europe. Without that, they don't have a job.
What do you think of Trump's Board of Peace then?
It's the problem with governments and why Canada will break up is simple. You have Carney is a globalist. Okay, so they get on their high horse about climate change and all this other nonsense. We should all go to church and thank God for global warming, because if there wasn't global warming, I'm sure we would have a 20-foot, ice, basically frozen all the way into, to Florida, But look, climate has always changed. This is all nonsense. Here in Florida, we had a politician, there's a red tide of bacteria that shows up in the Gulf every now and then. Vote for me. It's all farmers with their chemicals. I'll make sure we shut them down, blah, blah, and I'll eliminate red tide. I just simply Googled it. What was the first red tide? 1642, reported by the Spanish. I think that was before chemicals or farmers. But they always got to come up with blame somebody else. I'm sorry, there is such a thing as nature. You can't sue God. So I guess, you got to sue somebody else. I don't know what it is. But Canada will break up because basically this idea of a centralized government does not work. All right.
I've been
It only works when you're there to do limited function. You represent everybody in international issues. Okay. You don't say, well, you're going to do what I'm telling you to do because I think that's better. That's not freedom. It's not democracy. It's authoritarianism.
one of the things that I've been watching curiously has been the price of silver, price of gold, and it was a rocket ship, and then it had a drop, and now it's going back up. I think if I remember correctly, Martin, you told me it doesn't rise with inflation. It's always to do with war and the confidence in your government. Essentially, I could be splitting that just a little bit. Your thoughts on silver, gold, and what the future holds for those two here in the next, I don't know, year, let's say?
Look, I've said before, you can look at gold going into 1980. Went from 100 to 400 from 76 to December 79. Went from 400 in the last 6 weeks to January 21st to 875. Had nothing to do with inflation. That's when Russia invaded Afghanistan. All right. Gold started rising. I put it on my blog. I curiously, it coincided with the view that Europe wanted war with Russia. The insiders knew what was coming, and they started buying. It gold is it reached our first target of 5,000. When I put that out, and gold was 1,000, people thought I was crazy. Okay. Next target going off to 2032, it's probably going to test 10,000. All right. It's not that gold is going up so much. It's that the confidence in government is declining. All right. Just as you're talking about there with Alberta, but it's everywhere. What the computer is showing when I said we're going into World War, it's not like World War I or II. It's not us against one person. It's everywhere. You got North Korea, rattling the sabers with South Korea and Japan. You got Japan, looking at that. And in Asia, you got China versus Taiwan. You got even Thailand against Cambodia. India against Pakistan. I mean, it's everywhere. The Middle East. It's like whatever old grudge there was, it's just being resurrected. And that is driven by economics. You can look at it like the French Revolution. You have you basically have a shortage in commodities, and you have at least a slogan. It's debatable whether Marie Antoinette even said it. When she let them eat cake. Cake is the crust around the pan after you bake the bread. All right. So it's always economics. That's what drives it. The American Revolution, no taxation without representation. England needed money. Napoleon Wars, etc. Anything that they owed America, they would pay in copper coins. But anything the colonies had to buy from England had to be paid in silver or gold. They were extracting all the money from it. So, I mean, it's always, that's the bottom line. And as I said about the Fed, centralized power does not work. So you have, that's why I said on your show before, it's better that Alberta goes independent rather than joining the United States. Why? Because all you're going to do is you're going to replace, the Bank of Canada with the Federal Reserve. They're going to raise interest rates and not look at Alberta any more than the Bank of Canada would. All right. That's why I said you need your own central bank that deals with the economic situation in Alberta. It's different than it is in Toronto or New York. It's the Texas-New York arbitrage all over again. And we have to realize that there are different segments of the economy. Not each region is the same. And so there should not be any centralized dictatorial power.
On the Federal Reserve, they're changing the leader of that, the Federal Reserve Chair. It's going to be Kevin Warsh. What do you know about Kevin and your thoughts on that change coming here in 2026?
I think he's going to end up being forced to see reality. But look, Trump is acting based upon what everybody has been taught in university. Oh, lower interest rates and the stock market goes up. Higher interest rates, the stock market goes down. You can look on my site. I've published the chart of the Federal Reserve interest rates the first term of Trump. The Fed was raising interest rates all the way. Stock market went up. They called it the Trump rally. They didn't pay attention to the interest rates then. Look, the reality is every time you get a recession or a depression, interest rates decline. All right. As I said, in England, and EU, they even went to negative because they kept lowering interest rates and nothing happened. All right. The reason I called my model the economic confidence model is because before the Great Depression, you read the newspapers. Interest rates went up. That's bullish. That proves there's still a demand for money. People willing to borrow. You'll pay 10% if you think you can make 20. We've done correlations. The stock market's never peaked with the same interest rate twice. Because you're willing to borrow as long as you think you can make a profit. You won't pay 1% if you don't think the stock market's going to go up 1%. So the empirical level of interest rates it's irrelevant. But Trump is listening to this, bullshit from they teach in university, Keynesian economics. Oh, lower the interest rates, that will increase the demand. It has never worked once. They've lost every single time. Even Paul Volcker, read his, you can see the excerpts on my site. Rediscovery of the Business Cycle. Google it. Even Paul says the new form of economics, which was Keynesian, failed in 1974. But they haven't changed anything since. They still teach that in university. That's why, I've been asked, I'm going to do a conference, we're going to call it the Next Generation. They want me to do a conference to teach the next generation how the economy really works. So I've agreed to do that, or maybe in April or May or something. But it's just, it is time that we open our eyes. I mean, everything we've been taught in school about this, it doesn't work. I said at your conference, I realized that back in high school. I mean, you went to economics class and they said, oh, everything's random, so we can manipulate it to create utopia. Then you went to physics class, nothing's random. All right. Einstein said God doesn't play dice with the universe. All right. And I go, well, one of you guys is lying. I mean, I can't be told that it's not random. And then you go to the other one. No, it's random because I want to manipulate it. You see? So it's got to be random. And they go, this is nuts. Then I came across Herbert Hoover's memoirs. And I suggest you read 1931. That's when the sovereign debt crisis collapsed. And in there, he is describing what you're going to see in the economy today. He said capital acted like a loose cannon on the deck of a ship in the middle of like a hurricane. He said it was shooting off in every which direction so fast they couldn't get a committee to figure out why or where it was going next. All right. This is the problem with the euro. And I've had recent conversations. When I was called in, I said, fine. This is how we create a currency. You consolidate the debt if you want to compete with the US dollar. Herman Kohl said if he allowed the German people to vote, he would have lost 7-3. You can Google that up too. He admitted that he acted like a dictator. He didn't allow the German people to vote to join the euro. So he assumed they would be against any consolidation of the debt because that would appear as if they were bailing out Greece, Italy, etc. So he said no consolidation. Now, as a trader, just look at what's going on. There's peripheral spreads. If you think Italy's in trouble, you short Italy, you buy Germany. All right. The euro has never been able to compete with the dollar. Why? Because I can pick up the phone and say, buy me $10 billion worth of U.S. treasuries. Our banking system is backed only by the federal debt. Not, Poughkeepsie or California versus, Illinois. We don't do that. Europe does. All right. Because there's no federal debt. I look at Europe, I still got to make the same decision as if the euro didn't exist. Do I want Germany? Maybe France or the Netherlands? Do I want Italy? Nothing changed. Now the problem surfaces exactly as Hoover wrote. You had France and UK finance ministers admit that they may need IMF bailouts. If the market perceives that to be true, the traders are going to start looking at the banks. Who has the most French debt? Short it. So now you're going to have that loose cannon. You're going to have a banking crisis. Then this spills over into the pension fund. And then this is why Europe needs war. They know this. I've been in recent conversations asking me, how about this question? Okay, if Italy gets into trouble, well, what do you think if we just jettison Italy? So you carve it out. They're no longer part of the euro to try and save the euro. But you look at euro notes. They have a code on them. Each central bank prints currency in Europe. So what would happen? Are the notes issued by Italy still good? They go, didn't think about that. Yeah. I've dealt with governments for so long. There is nobody The guy could have been a dog catcher, smiles nice, and gets elected. I don't find, um, particularly today, I do not see anybody worthwhile sitting down and having a drink with. I mean, I could talk to Reagan, even Thatcher. I mean, I thought she was one of the smartest heads of state I ever met. Um, Kept the British pound out of the euro. Maggie understood. I said, this is just going to be the federalization of Europe. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Um, then I got called in by one of the major European auto manufacturers in Germany. Why? Because they shorted the pound. Because all the newspapers said, oh, Britain's not going to be part of the euro. The pound's going to collapse. So they shorted all sales for a year in British pounds because they weren't joining the euro. But the pound went up. The euro went down. They lost $1 billion. I get called in. Can you fix this? I said, why did you do this? Well, that's what the newspapers said. I'm not kidding. The level of expertise was zero.
So if I come back, you were talking about, I want to say the years were 76 to 78, and the price of gold going from 200 to 400, and then in a very short span of time, it went from 400 to 800.
Mm-hmm.
Watching everything that's going on right now, are we closer to that window where all of a sudden gold goes from 5 to 10,000, or are we in a different period of time where that's not happening?
No, you're now going to consolidate, build a base. You got a lot of the last run up was short covering. I won't mention the bank, but I know one bank that lost a shitload of money shorting silver. Oh, look at the chart. It can't go up any higher. And it did. All right. So there is a legitimate shortage of silver. China cut off exports. China was 60% of the physical market. You now have Trump talking about a 2.5 billion reserve he wants to create for silver. Okay. On the horizon, we have a sovereign debt crisis. You're looking at the breakup of governments. Plus, you have war. There isn't anything that implies stability over the next 8 years. Everything is uncertain. All right. So you're going to basically consolidate and then take off again. I believe once they begin to see that Middle East as well as Europe, probably the two most important war zones, and China versus Taiwan. I mean, there's a lot of other conflicts around, but I think once people see that, you're going to see the metals even go up further. And I would expect gold to go up, once it gets, really making new highs again. Eventually, you'll see it up around 10,000 by 2030 to 32. Silver, I would expect to get to at least 175, if not at least a 200 level. But we're talking about real shortages in a lot of commodities that were set in motion with COVID. Like I said, I knew one farmer, he had to kill 30,000 chickens because he couldn't get trucks to bring in food, and he couldn't send them to market because all the trucks were shut down. And then you get politicians blaming the farmer for greed with the price of eggs. It's, well, you're the ones that shut everybody down. I used to go to New York to a very, a famous Italian restaurant that was in the theater district. Again, brilliant political strategy. They shut everybody down, but they still had to pay rent. They didn't say, oh, well, you can't charge them rent while they can't do business. They went bankrupt. Were there for decades. All of a sudden owed millions of dollars in rent, but not allowed to take in any money. Oh, gee, I didn't think about that. We have idiots in government. I was on a train in Germany. Okay. Oh, we're pulling into Berlin. You got to put your mask on. Got to put the mask on. Train stops in Berlin. We then leave Berlin. Okay, you can take your mask off now. Thank you. I mean, because there's some idiot who's the mayor of Berlin. Oh, everybody's got to have a mask. I'm fed up. I've been dealing with governments for 50 years. This is the worst I've ever seen in my entire life. And like I said, there isn't anybody I'd want to have a drink with or even shake hands. I mean, it's Starmer. He'd probably throw me in jail for something I said 10 years ago. I mean, they're all just, I speak to people in the French government. They call Macron the Petit Napoleon. There were 3 generals that objected to him and wanted basically that any decision to go to war had to come from the people, from the parliament, not from Macron. What did he do? He stripped them of their rank. I mean, it's the people we have in governments around the world are just psychopaths, in my opinion. They don't give 2 shits about the people. They don't even care about the country. And it's all about power. And yes, we got to band together and do, really?
Yeah. You're not going to get any disagreements here, Martin. I just to stick on silver and gold though. You're like, if you're sitting here and you're watching the market do what it does, right? When I was following, I'm like, holy man, like this is wild thing to watch. And then it had the big drop and everybody started to panic, and then you start to see it tip back up, and maybe everybody's not panicking now. And you just go, if you reframe your mind to just not look at it day by day, look at it over the next 5 years, 5 to 6 years, I guess, or I guess 4 to 6 years, 2030 to 2032. You're like, it's going up. You just have to wait the time, because everything that's going on seems like it's, for lack of a better term, Martin, a perfect storm for it to go up.
Yeah, look, we got sovereign defaults on the horizon. You got war on the horizon. These are the reasons you buy gold. It's not inflation. I know a lot of gold bugs didn't like me because I said that's all bullshit. Gold went down from 1980 for 19 years. Bottomed in 1999 at 253, I think it was. All right. National debt went up. Money supply went up. All this bullshit. Oh, fiat. Really? Every currency's fiat. It doesn't matter. It can be gold and still fiat. All right. When they were talking about, you probably heard, oh, let's just take a platinum coin and call it $1 trillion. That's fiat. Okay. And then we can pay off the national debt with 5 platinum coins. Really? It's always the same bullshit. You had the silver Democrats from the 1890s overvaluing silver to deliberately create inflation. Why? Because the farmers were in debt. Had the long depression. So let's inflate the currency. So we're taking the debt that you owe and we're making it now payable with cheaper dollars. The city of Detroit went into default in 1937. They say, oh, no municipality ever really defaulted. Yeah, they finally paid. 1963. With dollars that bought 5 cents what they did in 1937. Look, it's politicians, governments, they will always act in their own self-interest. When I was young, I met with the Treasury in 1980 when interest rates were going up, going into 81. I said, guys, at these rates, the national debt's going to double in less than a decade. I swear to God, you know what they said to me? Yeah, Marty, but we'll be paying back with cheaper dollars. I said, so you guys know what you're doing then. Okay. I was young, naive. I thought I could make a difference, and you realize you can't. I can tell you what to do, and you will learn from your personal mistakes. Government does not. Why? Because it keeps changing. I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day. You know how many times I've been called in because of they pegged the currency and it broke and this. And I go, yeah, okay, fine. When I was called into the Swiss bank, I said, look, the peg's going to break. No, we think we can hold it. I said, well, good luck. I said, history's on my side. Nobody's been able to do this even once. It broke. A few weeks later, they called me Forex forecaster of the year for that one. I mean, I've just seen it so many times. So, yeah, okay, fine. We're going to do this again. I don't feel as if I can contribute in a way because you can't change the system. So that's the frustrating side from me. And Scotty wants to beam me up. I'm ready. I've had enough. I can't make a difference.
I chuckle because I think you are making a difference. It's just the on the government, like think about it. You've literally got a presidential letter saying thanks for your contribution. You are making a difference, Marty. It's just probably not as much of a difference as you want to make.
Well, I can't prevent it from happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can see the train crash coming, and you're like,
Yeah,
"Hey, just slow the train down, or there's a train we could just veer off on this track." And for whatever reason, it's going full speed ahead, no matter what.
yeah, it's like what I say about the neocon. They just want war, and they don't think about. You take Blinken, all right. He put the sanctions and removed Russia from SWIFT. Then the idiot, that's my belief, goes to China. Oh, if you help Russia, we'll do the same to you. Really? That creates bricks. Oh, if we don't do what this dictator says, we're removed from SWIFT? Okay, we'll create our own system. Thank you. All right? They don't understand anything. Only what's in front of their damn nose. I got to destroy Russia, period. I don't care what happens to the rest of the world. I got to win. This is not a football game. It's just trying to get them to see how everything's connected is impossible. That's why the neocons hate me. Oh, he's against the war. We want war. It's you had John McCain in Maidan in 2014 in Ukraine. Overthrow your government, we're with you. Can you imagine if Putin sent somebody on the steps of the Capitol, overthrow your government, we're with you? Oh, well, if we do it, it's okay. Oh, they do it, they're authoritarian, dictators, evil people. You know how many governments we've overthrown? It's endless. You take Iran, all right? This is what they don't understand. The Ayatollah revolution comes in 79. Just as you're seeing in Alberta, there's people pro and against. He's got people against forming a religious government. So what's he do? Like any other politician, brilliant. Oh, America is the great Satan. They then the students storm the embassy. Take the hostages, held them for 444 days. Why? Because it's America. They're the great Satan. Now, anybody that dares says domestically they're against a religious government, oh, he's an American plant. Arrest them. This is how you get rid of your opposition.
Well, so this brings me back to Alberta, right? You talk about all these different places. I'm living in a place that is having a petition right now. It's just a petition. They need signatures. And you can see the words changing. Traitor. These people are traitors to their country. And then you point out all these different countries. And I go, Martin, I'm literally living in a province that's talking about being independent. And if you're America, you're not staring at that lightly. You're going, is this a possibility? I mean, they're trying to draw in the fact that the United States is funding it and all these different things. It's being foreign funded. They're having they're running a crazy amount of articles, crazy amount of talking points. You're having premiers call us traitors. Mm-hmm. And I go, I don't even know how to phrase the question, because I'm just like, I listen to you and I'm like, let's bring it back to Alberta. Let's bring it back to what the people of Alberta are about to experience here. Because this isn't some island in the middle of the Pacific that has no importance. It's Alberta. It's got, the third largest oil reserves on the planet, among other things. Not to mention, the influence of a bunch of different countries in Canada and what they want to see happen, and not that. I mean, isn't Alberta maybe I'm wrong on this. We've talked about Russia, Ukraine a lot, Middle East, and the conflicts going on there and how important they are. But I go, isn't what's happening in Alberta a really important thing that the world is paying attention to?
Yeah, look, I think Alberta can be the beacon of light to the world, in that the problem is this centralized government. And that's why I say you don't want to join the United States, because then you're just going to replace the Bank of Canada with the Federal Reserve. You need independence. Your own currency, do not adopt the US dollar. All right. You can back it by gold, but not at a specific price. All right. But you have everything going for you that the globalists do not like. I mean, you got Bill Gates out there, fake red meat. Oh, so you don't want cattle. Oh, they fart and hurt the environment. All right. Well, so do you. Stick a cork in your ass. I'm just sick and tired of all this nonsense.
That might be the best quote I've had on the podcast, Martin. Bill Gates, why don't we stick a cork in your ass? Yes.
It's just ridiculous. All this stuff. I'm sick of it. It's show me any documented evidence, and there is none. The climate has always been going, up and down, back and forth. I mean, they never heard of an ice age in school. Come on. How did that even happen if there was no, SUV driving the mom driving the kids to work? It's ridiculous. And look, unfortunately, when you got somebody like Carney, who is a globalist, I mean, it was just because he was the head of his central bank doesn't mean he understands the economy. He clearly does not. He was just following Keynesian economics. That's it. Oh, what'd he do? He raised rates. I guess I got to do the same. That's it. All right. He was even talking about issuing debt in U.S. dollars. I mean, look, they do not know how to run an economy. I mean, they just don't. And they interfere in assuming, and it's all started with Karl Marx. Government has the power to change human nature. That didn't work out very well for Russia or for China. And the reason they are rising is because they've learned their lesson. The West has not yet. Why will it collapse? It's because we're still using Marxism. Just look at Gavin Newsom in California. Oh, we're going to tax all these billionaires 5%, but only one time. The idiots, they don't even understand. It's not cash. Bezos or whatever, they got stock. Okay, you got to sell 5%. Okay, so now by law, I got to dump Amazon stock. Then the stock market goes down, pension funds go down. Oh, gee, I didn't think about that. People are leaving. In the Panic of 1893, you can look up, I think one of the best speeches of a head of state was Grover Cleveland. And he said that unsound finance, okay, capital can leave and protect itself. The average worker cannot take his labor and put it offshore. He suffers the perils of unsound finance. Capital flees. And that's what Gavin Newsom is finally waking up to. Oh, all these billionaires are leaving? Saying, well, maybe the 5% thing isn't a good idea? Man, damn it, destroying New York City. I've joked plenty of times. The only reason I'd ever run for president is so I could use New York as a nuclear test site. That's it. But it's
well,
the
here
most
in
corrupt legal system around.
Here in Canada, there's tons of people leaving. Full stop. Getting out.
Yeah.
They're done with it. They've moved on. And there's a lot of people that are hopeful what Alberta's doing can work.
If Alberta separates, okay, I've said, one, no personal income tax. That's a Marxist bullshit thing anyhow. Maximum corporate tax, 10%. All right. I testified before the House Ways and Means Committee on this stuff. All right. So reason they were asking me why no American company got a single contract to build the Yellow River Dam in China. I said, very simple. We tax worldwide income. Germany does not. Germany got every contract. Why? Because they're already 35% cheaper than any American company can be. And they're just sitting looking at me and their mouths open. Oh, really? Yes. Did they change the laws? No.
I was gonna say on the no income tax. I had some feedback after the last time you said that. And I remember having another guest on talk about that it should be 5% because everybody needs to contribute to society. Your thought on why they should be none and not worry about, or I don't know, your thoughts on everybody needs to contribute something instead of just like getting a free ride, if you would, Martin.
You're not getting a free ride. You're using a consumption tax. All right. That argument, I guess I can say it now. I mean, I warned Maggie Thatcher that was not a good idea. She had that idea of a poll tax, the same bullshit. If everybody contributes, then they'll pay attention to what Congress or what Parliament is doing. I said it's not going to go over very well, I'm telling you. All right. That's why, the poll tax, she became very hated for that. The theory was the same. Oh, everybody's contributing, so they're going to pay attention. You do it on a consumption tax. If I put in, okay, I'm going to put in, as they did in 1913, they put in the income tax, swore up and down it was only going to be for the rich. How do I know you're not rich? Now you got to file a paper to say you're not rich. The crime on income tax, all right, is not, they can't put me in jail if I don't pay the tax. They put me in jail if I don't tell them I owe the tax. All right, you can't put someone in for not having the money to pay. That's debtor's prison, outlawed. They put you in prison as Al Capone for not filing the income tax form. So, you want to put up this bullshit? Fine, sounds nice. Oh, only a billionaire is going to pay. Where's your file? Oh, you didn't give it?
So
Martin
says no income tax, 10% locked in corporate tax, and have a consumption tax. Everything you buy has a tax on it.
Yeah, I mean, look, even real estate. I debated Steve Forbes, all right, and the governor of New Jersey, Florio, who happened to have been, if it moved, tax it, and if it died, take the rest. We debated. Steve was for the flat tax. I was debating consumption tax. All right. And of course, Florio was for tax everything around. All right. I blew Florio out of the water. He even wanted to meet me afterwards. Why? I said, you are borrowing from the poor. And you don't even have the dignity that gives them interest. I said, you take their money, hand back a refund check. Am I not a great guy? I stole $20 out of your pocket. I'm giving you your $20 back. All right. And then you don't pay them interest. But if I don't pay enough, I get charged 20% penalty and interest. You're borrowing from the poor and you don't even paying interest. Blew them right out of the water. Good old Democrat. All right. Steve, well-intentioned, but the problem is with a flat tax, you can move money offshore, this, that, the other thing. Consumption tax. You can't take a lawyer. You're going to go buy a car. You can't take a lawyer with you to get out of the tax. All right. It's fairer. Why does it work? It's less intrusive. That's what the original founding fathers said. No direct taxation. As soon as it's direct, I got to know everything you're doing. Oh, you found $100 bill in the parking lot? Where's my 50%? You are subservient to the state. You're an economic slave, period. I got to know everything you do. Even now, what's getting to the point, I got to know who the hell you're talking to. You want freedom? No income tax. Consumption tax, and you can look on my site. I did the whole brief on that back then. Tax reform. All right, laid it all out. When they started this stuff, they changed the definition of who is the rich. All right, it used to be $5 million in World War II. Then you were rich. Then it came down to 250. Then what did they do? Oh, now it's not just an individual, it's household income. So you and your wife combined are now rich. You got a couple kids and they're still living at home. Oh, now all four of you. Oh, you're all rich because combined you're now in that bracket. They got rules for everything.
Get rid of the rules.
Economic slave, period. You want freedom? Do what I told you to do.
One other question for you before I let you out of here, Martin. You wrote, the computer says, or our computer says, the Democratic Party will split. That's a new one that I hadn't heard from you, and I don't know if you've ever talked about that. The computer's predicting the Democratic Party is going to split.
Yeah, I said that at the 2025 conference we had. Everybody was kind of shocked, but you see it splitting already. You got, people yelling at the extreme left and right. And this is not without precedent. Okay. I see it the same thing as the Federalist Party. Washington was a Federalist, etc. By the 1820s, nobody wanted to go support them because they were doing the same thing that the Democrats are doing. Centralized government, and they're going to dictate everything. Got kicked the hell out. The party of Jefferson, who was their opponent, at that point in time was called the Democratic Republican Party. That split. Andrew Jackson split it, and it became the Democrats versus the Republicans. Political parties split all the time. So the Democratic Party, you're seeing it already. You're seeing, guys that I know in the Democratic Party as advisors are coming out and saying the far left, you're dragging us all down. You have others that one I had a conversation with, he wanted to know what the computer was saying because he felt that if the Democrats are championing the illegal aliens, they're going to lose big time. But look, this is part of the signs of going into 2032. All right. Politicians no longer give a shit about the country. All right. If Trump says the sky is blue, the other side must say it's red. Nobody cares. Trump's after the illegal aliens. We have to support them. So let me see. You support giving these people no taxation, complete free health care, which you won't even give to an American. Where is this logical? The politics has, and in Europe, you're seeing the same thing. It's like, whatever he says, I must oppose it. You had Biden selling all the material that Trump had bought for the wall. Sell it off as scrap. So if he comes in, he's got to buy it again. You know, here in Florida, there's a military base in Tampa. That's the base that oversees the Middle East. Trump's first term, he told them to set up a committee to figure out how to get out of Afghanistan. Then he left office. Biden comes in. The guys here, this is not conspiracy theory. This is real bullshit from Florida. Biden comes in. Oh, Trump hired them. Fire them all. Just get out of Afghanistan. That's why it was a mess. Trump hired people to say, figure out how to get out. Oh, because Trump did that, we have to say no. Throw them out and just get out. Complete mess. This is politics anymore. Nobody gives a shit about the country. Is this good for the country? Yes or no? Oh, he said it, so I have to oppose. And that's basically the rule of law is pretty much the last thing that goes. And you're seeing that collapsing everywhere. Once that goes, all right, there's really nothing left. Without the rule of law, you can't invest anywhere. You buy a house, how do I know some judge is going to honor the deed?
Well, you're seeing that in Canada right now.
Exactly. As an international hedge fund manager, the first question is country risk. I would never put any client's money whatsoever in Iran. Why? They nationalized all the oil wells before. Nigeria did the same thing. All right.
When you're an international investor, Martin, and you're looking at Alberta, there's been a lot of talk about investments fleeing out of Alberta. If Alberta was to get independence, 0% tax, 10% hard corporate tax, we're going to hold it there, the rule of law, what would happen to Alberta, in your opinion?
I'll open an office. You would have the biggest influx. Canada would probably be pissed off at you because people would be looking to move. Why do most companies have their headquarters in Hong Kong? You can call up my testimony before the House Ways and Means Committee. Ask me, why is this the case? Because they had a maximum corporate tax rate of 15%. So a company must pay some taxes. If it doesn't pay a corporate tax, then it's taxed in its home country to whatever that rate is. So they all set up basically their headquarters, Hong Kong, 15%. Might be 3 guys and 2 secretaries or whatever. That's it. That's the headquarters. And everybody else is doing whatever they want to do around the world anyhow. But they're there for legal purposes. I put companies in Macedonia. Why? Because I got a 25-year guarantee not to raise corporate taxes. All right. A company can't come in if you want them to build a plant to create jobs. Okay, fine. Tax rate is 5%. All right, that makes sense. I'll put up $2 billion, build this plant. Oh, I need more money. My mistress needs some money. My kids want to go to college, so I'm going to raise it to 25%. Now all of a sudden it's not viable anymore. I was called in. I was in London. This true story. I'm going to eventually do my memoirs, I guess. But I was in London. I got a phone call. Probably one of the top 3 communication companies in Germany. we're having a board meeting tomorrow morning. We need you here right away. I said, what's up? You'll find out when you get there. I get there. They appoint our firm advisor to the pension fund, and everybody's resigning. I said, what the hell is this? A Harry Carey meeting or what? The company applied to reduce its workforce by 20%. The German government says, okay. At the last minute, the government says, oh, it's not fair that you pick and choose. You have to make the same offer to everybody to voluntarily give up their jobs. I even discussed this with a board member of the IMF, and they told me, you're right, the same thing happened in Greece. Okay? You make an offer, here's 100,000 if you voluntarily give up your job. You now know you can get a job across the street. Thank you. I'll take the 100 grand. I walk across the street. The people they wanted to get rid of couldn't find a job anyplace else, so they stayed. The chairman of the company says, I have to resign because this company is going to have serious economic problems. And if I am on the board, I'll never get a job again. So he, too, took the 100 grand and left. Look, human nature is human nature. You can't screw with it with this Marxist nonsense. Just think of it. Somebody's going to say, I'll give you 100 grand. And you know you can get a job across the street. You'd be a fool not to take it. But, these people in government that make up these ideas and rules, they have no concept of what they're dealing with. Take Obamacare. I had Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They call me, oh, we have to cancel your policy. I said, why? You don't have maternity leave. Well, I don't think I'm going to get pregnant. And I'm not married at the time. All right. We still have to cancel it because some 23-year-old kid writing Obamacare, every policy's got to have this. All right. I get some new policy. I go to the dentist. I said, I have no idea what the hell I'm covered for anymore. I give him my card. Oh, your children are covered, but you're not covered. Oh, thank you very much. It's because some 23-year-old kid in Washington, oh, yes, every woman should be covered, should have maternity leave, this, that. What if you're not, you're a man and you're not married? It got to the point, felt like we should just walk into the bar. Hey, girls, line up. You'll all be covered. No problem. Not me, but everybody else will. It just got nuts. And that's why Obamacare was such a disaster. It wasn't just me. I spoke to other friends. Same problem.
Martin, it's always a treat to have you on the podcast. I'm looking forward to seeing you again here at the end of March when the Cornerstone Forum returns.
Just turn the heat up, please.
Well, I tell you what, we're not in the rink this time. We're in at the Westin Calgary Airport, so it's a nice 2-minute shuttle ride to the hotel. I assume they'll have the heat up in that building. But to anyone who doesn't have tickets, I just put it out this morning. I think we're at 94 tickets left. So I don't know if you're waiting, you're procrastinating, but you want to see Martin among a whole bunch of others, right? Premier Daniel Smith is going to be speaking in the lunch hour, or right around the lunch hour. And, I'm once again, Tom and Alex and a whole group of people going to be coming in and descending on Calgary. Looking forward to seeing you in person again. It was a real treat to finally meet you last year, and looking forward to it this year. And appreciate you hopping on and being a part of the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I always have a warm place in my heart for Alberta. I wanted to show the light to the world.
Sounds good, Martin. Well, we'll be looking forward to you being on stage and all.